going on, fellas? It's Scare Bear and Tivis. We're doing another episode today. Um, in the future, we're basically going to try to do one big episode of previews and recaps all in one. So tonight's episode will be the second half of basically what that first episode would be. We'll just kind of be doing league specific stuff. Thank you guys for the feedback that we got from the guys who did listen to the episode. We'll try to keep them short and sweet and entertaining. So one of the things that was said was that, you guys don't really want to hear news from the league. So we'll just try to focus on specifically what's happening in our leagues each week, as well as the implications of those matchups. So first thing we'll talk about is just the standings each week. So myself and Tivis are sitting at the top at 8-3. So we'll call this first place podcast. Weebs or Wiley and Grayson are second place at 7-4. Weebs and Crater are 6-5 in third place, tied. Hartzell's by himself at 5-6. In fourth place, Fish, Garrett, Panko, and Bryce all sitting at 4-7. In fifth place, Greco at 3-8, but gaining momentum. And that's after the Monday night matchups. Last night, there were a couple implications on that Chiefs and Eagles game. Go Birds was a great game. If you watched it, hit every bet that I needed. Weaved owed me a round of golf, and my Eagles won in Arrowhead Stadium, so that's great. And on top of that, I beat Weaves in fantasy. So, anything to add to the standings here, Tivis?
Well, I mean, just like what you just mentioned, I was thinking about it. There's only 5 places in a league of 12 people. I mean, like there's like 5 guys tied, 4 guys tied in fourth place. That's crazy. So, I mean, like in 3 weeks, there's a lot of movement that can happen. That's why there's so many trades going on.
Right.
I mean, people who are at 4-7 are making trades to try and get it 7-7 and try and get in the playoffs by the end of the week at the end of the year. So, there's just a lot of movement that can still happen. A lot of people tied still. It's really cool to see the competitiveness this year. I think the super flex has added to that a lot, but it's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the added quarterback positions added a lot of trade value and a lot of just different. It's added another variable, another way to trade, another thing you can add into the mix. But no, it is a pretty stratified league. It has been for most of the year. You're starting to see it shake out now. I think you and I. So me and you were tied at first place at 8-3, but we play each other 2 more times before the end of the year. So, one of us will be in first place, regardless. Anyway, hopefully. Moving on. So week 11 recap. So Wiley and Hartzell played. Wiley eked out a win over Hartzell to go to 7-4 for second place. Hartzell falls to 5-6. Myself and Weaves had a nail biter going on last night. I won that one and went to tied for first with Clayton at 8-3. Weaves falls to 6-5. Greco and G Scott played. G Scott got his back blown out by Banjos and Kittles in true deliverance form, falling down to 4-7. Greco is heating up, man, at 3-8. He's really trying to not do that punishment again. Making trades left and right, trying to get out of it. But I think karma's a bitch. I think he's going to end up in last place. That's kind of my vote.
Well, I mean, like we said, 3 weeks left. There's a lot of movement at the bottom. He can get out of last place super easy, I think.
Yeah, and his team's really good, man, which we'll look at here in a minute. Devontae Adams is just the king of fucking people over in one night. He's done that to me this year. He did it to me last year. He dropped a 40-piece on me on Monday Night Football. I think I actually referenced that the last episode. Anyway, Fish and Bryce had a close game last night. Fish needed Hurts to put up, I think, 30 points, and he did not do that. He didn't have. I think he had negative points going into the half or maybe the second quarter, but he didn't really turn it on until the last quarter there. Scored 2 rushing touchdowns to help out, help improve and save the day a little bit, but not really a lot of fantasy production from Mahomes either. A lot of drops, on the Chiefs side. Justin Watson, I think he had like 15 targets or something and only had like 6 catches.
Devon Achane really let Fisher down. If he had just a few more catches, a couple more carries, a touchdown, he probably could have squeezed out a win. But that's fantasy too.
Yeah,
you bet on guys to come back and they're not the same.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that injury is something to pay attention to here moving forward. He re-aggravated that knee injury that he was on IR for, and I think he missed 5 weeks because they had a bye when they were on IR too. But anyway, Fish and Bryce, that was a good one. Now they're both at 4-7, so Bryce is starting to catch some momentum too. He's on a
Yeah.
3-game heater, moving up from the bottom there, trying to make the playoffs, which is totally doable. He's got a great team. And then Clayton and Crater, that one was over before the Monday night game. I think there was a 100%
Yeah.
chance on that one after Sunday. Crater just got destroyed with the Burrow thing, man. That sucks. It sucks so bad in a 2 quarterback league when you spend that high of a draft pick on a quarterback and he goes down.
Yeah.
That just takes your team out. I like seeing how differently teams have drafted. Like I remember specifically when we were drafting, you told me that you didn't know if it was the best strategy to go quarterback heavy at the top, and you went with McCaffrey, and then I think a couple other like highly touted skill players
Yeah.
too. But we're
Yeah.
still
I mean,
at the top though.
I started the draft McCaffrey, Chubb, and Chubb goes down unfortunately. But I mean, that's your top heavy assets there. And with a quarterback with 2 quarterback league, there's always quarterbacks that are going to be, unexpected good players. Whether they're going to be like from the backup role to starter role or new teams or whatever. So I figured there's going to be or second year guys, and there'd be people to pick up after
Mhm.
the draft. So that's what I thought. And but yeah, I mean the Crater matchup with Crater. I mean I was worried about Mark Andrews going down earlier in the first quarter.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, Burrow going down really, helped me out that week. Unfortunately for Crater, I hate to see injuries like that, but it is fantasy. I want to win still. I'd take the win either way.
Yeah, I know, man. I hate the injury bug. It happens every year to somebody. You just hope you're never on the wave because if you are, it sucks.
Well,
It seems like
I
you
mean,
can't
dude,
ever get your head above water, dude.
I started the year losing Chubb and J.K. Dobbins first like 2 weeks. So, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
I've
you
I've
did say
I've
that.
bounced back and tried to get out of that. But it's a lot easier early in the year when things are up in the air. But now when things are more set, it's hard to get out of that hole
Yeah.
once you're in it now.
Yeah, I would say late season injuries are the absolute worst form of injuries because at least if it's early, you can kind of maybe get the guy off waivers who's his backup or whatever. Like Jerome Ford, Grayson was able to pick him up, early
Yeah,
on. I think he helped him win some games.
yeah,
But anyway, so that's what happened in week 11. Moving on to week 12, couple things to highlight here. So it's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you boys. I'm thankful for all of you guys and the good Lord for putting us here together. I'm also thankful for fantasy football, but I hope I kick all your asses. We got games Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and Monday. So make sure you set your lineups. Going in early on, make sure you know if you have people playing those days because Friday games are weird. Anyway, there's a lot of games being played on Thursday. Just make sure you don't forget about the one that plays
three
Friday.
games, three
We
games
don't have
Thursday.
any. We have 3 games Thursday. Yeah, yeah, that'll be a good time. I think Cowboys play. They usually play. Maybe the Packers probably play too.
Yeah, Packers, Lions, Cowboys, Washington is always the matchup, and then Niners, Seattle is the third.
Yeah, yeah. Niners, Seattle, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah,
So we don't have any buys this week. Next week, though, something to look ahead to. Week 13 for you playoff guys. We got 6 teams on bye that week. So just be prepared for that. So first matchup we'll take a look at is why would we look at any other matchup other than the battle for first place here between Clayton and myself? We got I think implied what was it? So right now it's projected at 150.2 to 137.6 in favor of Gare Bear I'm favored with a line of minus 12 and a half. I don't think you have all your lineups set right now, so that might be a little bit.
well, yeah, I'm waiting on a trade to go through right now for Tank Dell, hopefully. So once he gets in, it'll be a little bit more even, I believe. But I mean, that's pretty close to the matchup right now, so it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's going to be a banger, as they say. I think it'll be a lot of points, man. I really do. There's a lot of. I was looking at some rankings, and we've got some guys that are high up in the PPR rankings this week. So I'm expecting to see some big numbers. You have lockdown running backs with Gibbs and McCaffrey. How is he kind of let you down this past week. He's one of those fantasy
Yeah,
guys we were talking, or those waiver guys we were talking about, who's a difference maker. But I think he'll tear it up this week, man. I mean, he's a gunslinger, dude.
yeah,
We've talked
yeah,
about him all season.
yeah. I mean, I'm expecting him to play Dallas. It's a hard matchup, on paper, but
Mm,
you look at Thanksgiving, you expect it to be competitive, you expect it to be entertaining. So I think from like a big picture aspect, I'm confident in that. I think I'm trying out DK Metcalf, a few new toys, DK and Tank Dell this week. So
Mhm.
just give those a spin, see how they go. Hopefully that trade will go through. Knock on wood. But yeah, I think it'll be a good matchup as long as everybody's healthy, as long as all the game scripts are, go the way they should. I think it'll be a good matchup. We got a lot of good games in our players.
Yeah, nobody ever hated a high scoring game. You know what I mean? That's the most exciting type of game to watch. So
Yeah, yeah,
we obviously love overs, and that's what we want here. So
that's right.
definitely looking
Every
for
week.
some of those on Thanksgiving Day. You and I are, I know for sure.
Yeah,
Couple trades coming in. You've got Dell and Hunt coming in. I've got Ayuk and Jones coming in. Hopefully, it's that time of year where you start to trade for the playoffs. You don't really stash anymore at this point. So,
yeah,
if anybody wants Mahomes, man, I'm trying to get rid of him. So please come get him. So that's probably the biggest, or at least the most important to us. But the next probably biggest implication game is Wiley and Weed. Wiley's at 7-4, tied for second with Grayson. We just sitting at 6-5. The line is Wiley -1.5. I think they've got their lineups fully set right now.
hmm
Both of these teams are really good and are a couple wins, couple close games away from being in the same position we're in. That's what's crazy about this league every year is that, like there's teams that are always better than the top teams kind of in the middle of the pack because they've lost on some bullshit.
yeah,
And I think that's happened
yeah.
to these guys.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. These two teams are like almost they're stacked in the opposite direction. I mean, Wiley's got these three super stud running backs, and then theoretically Cooper Cup in there. You got three superstar. Puka's a newer guy, but he's
Mhm.
proved to be a stud. He's averaging like 8 targets a game or something crazy. So I
Mhm.
mean, if he can, I think he's had every game with over 7 targets. I want to say, or at least 7 targets. So I mean, you got three superstar wide receivers, three superstar running backs. If they can all play at their best, it's yeah. I mean, it's just this whole league is you got projected points at 130 all over the place in this league. I mean, it's a high scoring league, adding the super flex. But then
Yeah.
when you can build it in different ways, running back heavy, receiver heavy, quarterback heavy,
Mhm.
just makes for fun matchups, makes for fun, team building. So I love these. I love both these teams. I think they're both really good teams, and I don't want to see either one of them in the playoffs. So hope they both lose somehow.
I know, man. I wish they both lose so that I just wouldn't see them in the playoffs. Hopefully,
Yeah, that'd be
I
nice.
know
Yeah,
these guys like what every single game I've played this year. I think I've said I could easily lose this game. Like every
yeah,
single game.
yeah,
It's just kind of the way that things fall sometimes, and I think it's fell in a negative way for these two. Weaves has the
yeah,
best receiving core I've ever seen on a fantasy football team ever.
yeah,
Justin Jefferson is the number one pick in a lot of leagues.
yeah. And I didn't even mention him. I didn't even mention Justin Jefferson when talking about that. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
like
Yeah,
he's got
so he's
Jefferson.
been he
He
hasn't been playing.
somehow scooped Nakua off of the waivers, who had 30 targets in the first two games of his career.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and then Cup, and then obviously AJ Brown, my dude. Which, yeah, but then you got the same thing. I mean, on Wiley's team, like you were saying, Stroud has been just amazing. He can blow it up. I think he's got the highest quarterback game all year this year at 40 something points. I don't think
yeah.
anybody else cracked 40. So you're facing that every week, and like you said, I don't want to face either one of these guys.
No, no.
All
When
right.
when the Houston's got a bad team and a bad defense, CJ Stroud, yeah, I think he's awesome too. I think he's really good. I have
Mhm.
him in another league. He's great.
He is, man. It's crazy. He's always over like 250 passing yards almost every single game, which is
Yeah.
nuts. As a rookie, it's everybody that I like listened to and watched say he's the best rookie we've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they got one of the most underrated receiving boards. I mean, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Robert Woods is still there. He's older, but I mean, if he can get you a couple of catches and be open, I mean, he's your third option. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, I mean
And
he's
they
done
got
it.
this new guy, Noah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's,
So
he's
it's
he's like a. I was a big Woods guy in Los Angeles. He was when he got traded. You saw a lot of what happened to Los Angeles, man. Like a lot of the
yeah,
blocking stuff wasn't the same. But anyway, so the next matchup we're going to look at is Hartzell and Bryce. Hartzell's at 5-6. Bryce is at 4-7. I mean, Bryce has won three in a row, and Hartzell is the inverse of that. He's lost three in a row. So both of these guys hungry for a win here. Line right now sitting at Hartzell -12.3. I think these lineups are set. Bryce had another two teams right here that are studly. Bryce has two. I mean, I think he's got three top 15 running backs in ETN, Josh Jacobs, and I think Brian Robinson.
I think I think
Top.
they're three top. I think they're top five running backs. They're top. They're all top five running backs, I believe, per
That's
ESPN.
insanity.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, and he's 4-7. Like, and if he's 4-7 and went on a 3-game streak, that means he was at 1-7 and
yeah,
won three in a row
yeah.
to get to four and
That's
seven.
crazy.
You know what I'm
I,
saying?
I,
Those guys is his running
I,
backs.
I was watching. I was watching him and Greco battle for last place all season, and then all of a sudden, he's in the running. I mean, yeah, like you mentioned the three running backs. I mean, those guys. I'm trying to find a way to pry one of them away from him because I would love a third one, but it's they're all. Josh Jacobs and ETN are workhorses, and Brian Robinson I think was more of a question mark, but I mean Sam Howell's awesome. And it's just another unique way of picking guys up for cheaper, like Robinson, and Jacobs and ETN are obviously higher draft capital, but
Mm.
been building around something like Jordan Love. I think he's had a decent year. I mean, he's not one of the higher ranked quarterbacks, but if you can get those three guys pulling most of the weight and have a Jordan Love consistent. I mean, yeah, Bryce's team has definitely pulled his way out of the gutter for sure.
Yeah, and I don't even know how he got there really. I mean, he has Jamar Chase too. Like that's the
Yeah,
wildest thing ever. Like, I
yeah,
mean, Burrow obviously has been down, but I mean, he still had big games. I think I think he had a 30-point game or a 40-point game in there somewhere this year. So,
yeah,
but he's not been the guy you drafted him to be. Regardless, still a heavy team, heavy hitting team. Hartzell's got a good team too. Walker going down, the question marks around that. That's kind of, that's going to change things for him a little bit there. I'm a little surprised he got
mhm,
rid of Tank Dell. I'm a little mad he got rid of Tank Dell and gave him to you and not me, but that's whatever. And,
mhm,
same thing. If Bryce ever does trade one of those running backs, man, let me know.
yeah,
Because I'll trade you for him too. Um, yeah, the other thing about Hartzell's team is that, he went with the Olave Wilson combo early in the draft, which on a lot of my mock drafts I tried too, and I was like, because that's the projected takes, that's the
mhm,
unknown takes, like the gamble where it's like they could take the second year leap, or Wilson's getting Aaron Rodgers, like what does that look like now, and all the reports out of
mhm,
training camp are great. But unfortunately, everybody wanted Rodgers to do his thing in New York, and it's very unfortunate what happened there. And same
yeah,
thing with Derek Carr in New Orleans, and it's not really working out. So I think that's crushed his team a lot.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I got a guy like Calvin Ridley who's so hot and cold. It's so hard to rely on somebody like him, and
Yeah,
it's a tough. It's how fantasy plays out. You think you have a lot playing going for you in the beginning of the season, and it all falls apart eventually on
yeah.
someone's team. Just happens to be Hartzell's in some ways.
Hmm. I know, man. That's the thing, man. And I don't know why we do this to ourselves every year. Anyway, so next game we'll look at is Crater and Panko. So both of these are must-win games for these teams. Both of these guys are on pretty heavy losing streaks here. Not gonna lie, boys.
Yeah,
Panko's coming in with a hot 5 games in a row, taking L's left and right, man. Um, Crater's coming through with 3 games, losing 2. That's one of these guys has to win, so that's the silver lining. So somebody's breaking
yeah.
the streak this week. The line right now is Crater. When I was looking at his fantasy cast nickname, it's just fuck in all caps. Line right now is fuck plus 15.3. Um,
Yep.
Again, like, Crater's team, man, just hit with injuries. Like he's got one of those teams that is like they produce really well, but he took 2 quarterbacks early and that's carried his team pretty hard throughout the year. But with Burrow going down, man, like that's treacherous waters right there, dude.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is, and you expect a guy like Derrick Henry to perform, as like he did the last 5 years plus, and eventually they're gonna. I wouldn't call it a cliff, but there's gonna be some downgrading there in terms of fantasy ranking, and that's what you run into with Henry, unfortunately. And then Burrow was never his full self until probably 5 weeks in, and then he goes down 6 weeks later, and that's pretty brutal. Yeah,
Would you
so
trade for
it's
Would you
tough.
trade for Derrick Henry for the playoff schedule?
I mean, as long as he can stay healthy, yeah, he should have a good, positive game script for most of those games. But I mean, that's if they can get out to a lead against, you expect Houston, he can get out to a lead and they can just run the ball down their throats. But with the quarterback situation, it's tough to say if they can even get that lead in the first place. So I think I'm a little bit. I would be willing to trade on the low for Henry because I mean he's had 2 games in a row under 6 points on 11 and 10 carries, which is not nothing. It's not typical Derrick Henry workload, but you hope to get more than -4 and 6 yards at a Derrick Henry in the game. So it's
Yeah.
tough. I don't know. I don't know if I would be willing to make the gamble, especially um, for some, depending on what you expect to get back for Derrick Henry. You expect to get back a good lot for the name, and I don't think the value's there this year, personally.
It's difficult, man. It's the name. He's the Yeti, and it's just the fact that it's the same reason why like Mahomes, like why nobody wants to trade me for Mahomes is because
Yeah.
he can score 50,000 fantasy points in a game if he wants to or has to, and it can come at
Hmm.
any time, or it might not happen. And
Yep.
we're in that stage of their careers now where it's starting to maybe not happen as much. Like do you think they trade
Yeah.
Derrick Henry next year?
I mean, I think if they can get their quarterback situation figured out a little bit more, and they want to make a final push, I could see them not moving him. They still got to figure out their receivers. I mean,
Yeah.
does DeAndre Hopkins is okay, but is he going to be able to have a serious wide receiver one, level of play for a quarterback or a Super Bowl team? I don't know. I think it's possible if they think it's a lost cause with Will Levis, then they could do a full reset. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say if there's even if the cliff is here even for Derrick Henry. I think it's close, but I don't know. I don't know who's willing to trade for him.
Would you
Maybe
trade?
a second or running
Would you trade? Would you trade Brees Hall for him?
in fantasy.
Yeah,
Receiving Hall for Henry or receiving
receiving
Henry for
Henry.
Hall?
Receiving Henry. You'd be receiving
Yeah,
Henry in these situations.
I would need to look at Hall's schedule, but probably not. No, I would probably hold on to Hall for Henry.
DeAndre Swift.
Probably. Yeah, same thing. I'd probably be more inclined to give up Hall than
Okay.
DeAndre Swift.
What
Yeah.
about Jalen Warren?
I think Warren is an unknown. I think
If I offered you Derrick Henry for Jalen Warren, are you taking that?
I have to look at Jalen Warren's schedule at the end of the year to see what the playoff implications are, but that would be really close. I would really consider that. Yeah.
I don't think there's really many people who wouldn't take that one. That's hard.
I, I mean,
Just
it's
for the
it's
name,
hard
though.
when Derek.
Like, just for the
It's
name.
for the name. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, you look at Jalen Warren is taking over the backfield in the Steelers. I think he's probably up for a resurgence a little bit. And like I said, you have less than 6 points. You have less than 10 points in 4 of his games this year, and everything else is pretty normal Derrick Henry stuff. But it's just risky. If one of those games could be in that playoff matchup, you need to win. I mean, I don't know if I'm willing to take the bet on Derrick Henry, having a bad game this year. I don't know. It's tough.
I feel that. Well, I guess I don't know. Well, I mean, like, who would you do it for then? Like who would you trade for here?
I mean, if, in my current position, I'm running back heavy, so I'm not in a dire need for that. If I was in a bad situation, I would do the Jalen Warren for Derrick Henry, possibly. I mean, I might even hang on to Jalen Warren, though. I'd probably, me, if I got weak at running back, I'm trying to trade I'm trying to upgrade somebody to a different position for their good running back. So I'd try away a high end running back too, or I'm sorry, wide receiver too. Something like that, I would say, but even that's a bit of a long shot. I'm not a long shot. That's probably where I'd settle, somewhere around there, wide receiver too.
I got you. Well,
But
both of these teams need a quarterback, and I've got one to trade. So if you do,
yeah,
just with us.
yeah,
Next,
me too.
second to last matchup we got here. This is a very, very heavy implicated matchup betwixt the two guys. We've got G Scott and Fish coming in at 4-7. Line is Fish plus 5.5. This is a huge side bet implication here that I'm going to get a piece of action on. Bet was made in Asheville that whoever finishes higher here, well, I guess whoever finishes lower between Garrett and Fisher has to caddy a round and pay for a round.
Mm,
Lonnie Pool Golf Course in Raleigh.
okay.
It's North Carolina State University's golf course. It is a sick golf course I've never played at. $100 round. And they're playing each other this week. And I fully think that whoever loses this game will lose that bet. Um,
Interesting.
I think that whoever, Garrett's got another one with a great team. I mean, like, he's got Josh Allen and Kincaid stack. His run. He's got Ramondre Stevenson at flex, which is in itself a flex.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Ramondre was a second round running back pick, you know, on a lot of teams. So,
Yeah.
you know, Saquon, I think, and I don't remember who's his other running back with
It's David Montgomery right now, right?
Montgomery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like Montgomery is, you know, without. I mean, if Gibbs goes down, you know, knock on wood, he doesn't. But if he
Yeah,
does, like Montgomery just to
for
the
sure.
moon.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, it's like we talked about this before. I mean, the interesting building. I mean, you know, your two receivers are Devontae Smith and Deontay Johnson. I mean, it's not the most ideal receiver setup you have, but I mean, when you can stack up a running back, it's not a bad move. But I've always looked at Fisher's team and I've wondered how he picks between his carousel of wide receivers. Hopkins, Kirk, Myers was playing well for a lot of the season. He's kind of tailed off a little bit, but I mean, it's tough to make those decisions when you have guys who've had big games this year and have big game potential to
mhm.
choose between a guy like Kirk and Myers. You know, I mean, that's tough. Those are tough lineup decisions. And in a game like and Godwin in there, I mean, Godwin's almost identical to Kirk in a way. I mean, you got a lot of tough lineup decisions to make, and especially in a matchup this tight, that means a lot for $100 round of golf bet. I mean, that's a lot of implications, especially not outside of fantasy. I mean, it's some tough matchup decisions here. I mean, and you on the other side, you know, Romeo Dobbs, he's a borderline. It's in between him and Jaden Reed on the Packers. I mean, those are the two
Yeah.
like dice rolls every week. I mean, it's hard to say who's going to get the targets, who's going to get the big touchdown. Someone who's probably going to get one, but
Hmm.
it's there are a lot of lineup decisions when you have a league this thin and this deep.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Fisher's like juggling tight ends pretty much with Evan Ingram
Yeah,
and Dalton
yeah,
Schultz, you know, because Schultz can go off, but Ingram can too.
yep.
You know, that's one you might want to look at trading with right there, you know, with
I
your
might need to. Yeah,
you've got. Um, but no, like you said, man, I mean, it's, you know, both of these teams, again, great teams on paper. You know, I would even be willing to put another bet on this game, just, you know, like whoever loses this game, you know, has to then pay for lunch at Lonnie Pool or whatever for that round or something like that. Because I'm gonna be there,
hmm
just, you know, and I'm gonna try to sneak in on a little payment here, but I don't know if that'll happen. And last one here we'll look at is Grayson and Greco. 7-4 Grayson here at second place, quietly at second place. And then Greco at 3-8. You know, line is Cobb minus 8.1 here. Grace's team is super solid. You know, he's the thing I want to talk about with his team is Stephon Diggs. 2 down weeks, you know. Josh Allen has had 2 down weeks. He's just been playing bad in general, leading the league in interceptions. You know, how long until that stops? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's typical Josh Allen. He's a gunslinger. I mean, you know, he's always last year. I think it was an anomaly. I think he was pretty low in interceptions last year, but typically, you know, he's kind of a kid of tossing it. So I mean, you're gonna have to live with that. I mean, you know, I think Stephon is the same thing. I mean, you're never gonna not start Stephon Diggs while he's in Buffalo playing with Josh Allen. I mean, you're gonna keep playing him. He's a wide receiver one. He's probably a top 10 in the year. I mean, you're gonna keep playing him. I think you know, Michael Pittman. I traded him Michael Pittman earlier this year, and I think he has been a sneaky one of his probably one of his MVP just for the consistency. I mean, since
Mhm.
week five, he's got nothing less than 10 points, and most everything's over 15 points. So, I mean, if you can't ask for much more than that, you know, out of a wide receiver, too, I mean, that's, you know, he's got an awesome team. You know, you expect him to whoop up on Greco, but, you know, we saw Greco's team go off for 170 last week. So, this league is, it's always a dice roll. Who's gonna go off? Um, you know, I think
Yeah.
Greco's team is sneaky good too. I mean, he's
Yeah.
had some bad injury luck, and you know, when you have a team, two and Justin Fields is a guy who's been on his bench out for 5 weeks or whatever. So I think if Justin Fields can go back to his old play, I think there's no reason he can't make his way out of last place for sure.
No, for sure. And I mean, the trade with you for to get Zay Flowers, like I think, you know, Mark Andrews going down and Zay Flowers, like that shoots his stock way up. I
Yeah,
mean, last year
it
when
does.
he like really started playing well towards the end of the year was when Mark Andrews went down. So I'm rooting for Greco personally to knock off
Hmm.
Grayson. I don't want to see Grayson's team in the playoffs. So I'm hoping Devontae could have like 5 straight games of 40 pieces and just, you know,
Yeah,
cause some havoc here. Like you said, though, Fields coming back is huge for him. You know, he's got a couple guys coming in off the trade. just would like to say again, Grayson offers the worst trades in the league by far. Pittman, like you said though, man, he's been one that I had him last year, and I knew he was going to do well this year, and I don't know if you remember, but earlier in the year, like I was like, man, like I can't trade for this dude and have him on my team again. I can't
Yeah.
see him get 11 points every week again,
Yeah.
But anyway, um, so yeah, so that's what we've got this week for you guys. Let us know what you think about this. Give us kind of some feedback on it. We'll send it out to you over email again. Yeah, and I think next week we'll try to maybe highlight some fantasy MVPs if you're cool with that. Look at maybe like the one player from each team who's been the guy who's got you where you are. And then maybe some guys that, were not so special. Maybe some guys you drafted that, choked on a big old bag of dicks or something like that. So,
Yeah.
a couple things to look at next week, but until then, see you guys later.
You boys.